The silence in my workshop had a texture to it, a dense, satisfying quiet built from sawdust and old wood. At 71 years old, I'd earned this peace. I am Arthur Bell, retired master carpenter, widower for a decade, father to one son, and grandfather to two girls who thought my workshop was a palace of hidden treasures. The morning sun cut through the high windows of my garage, illuminating floating motes of dust like suspended constellations. The scent of pine, varnish, and the rich, dark roast of my coffee filled the air. This was my sanctuary, my kingdom of calibrated precision. This wasn't just a garage. It was the soul of the two-story craftsman house I'd built with my own hands 40 years ago. Every beam in this home had been measured, cut, and set by me and my late wife, Clara. She held the levels, her steady hands guiding mine as we raised the walls of our future. We poured every ounce of our sweat and hope into this place. Clara was gone 10 years now, taken by a swift and brutal cancer, but not before she made me swear an oath. "This house is your anchor, Arthur," she'd whispered, her voice thin as paper. "It's the proof of our life. Don't let anyone pull it out from under you." I'd kept that promise. I'd worked my body to the bone for decades, first in construction, then running my own small carpentry business to pay off the mortgage. This house wasn't just wood and nail, it was my spine. The familiar crunch of tires on gravel broke the morning spell. I didn't need to look up. I knew the sound of my son's expensive, impractical SUV. The engine cut, and a car door slammed with a solid, entitled thud. A moment later, the side door to the workshop opened without a knock. "Dad." I looked up from the walnut table leg I was sanding. My son, Mark, stood there, his suit too crisp for a casual visit, his jaw set in that specific way he had when he was about to deliver bad news he'd already decided was good. "Mark," I said, setting down the sanding block, "this is a surprise." He ran a hand through his hair, already streaked with gray he was too vain to accept. "We need to talk. Melissa and I have made a decision." That word, decision, it landed in the quiet workshop like a hammer on an anvil. I felt the air shift. He didn't wait for an invitation. He started packing, his eyes cataloging my tools, my projects, my space. "We're moving in. Next week. The apartment lease is up, and with the market the way it is, it just makes sense." I stared at him, the coffee in my mug suddenly tasting like ash. "Moving in," I repeated, the words flat and dead. "Just temporary," he said, waving a hand as if swatting a fly. "Until we find a bigger place. It's not good for you to be out here all alone at your age. You'll thank us later." The audacity was so pure it was almost breathtaking. He was standing in a house I had built, telling me he was taking it over and framing it as a favor to me. "You're moving in," I said again, my voice low, "into my house." He finally stopped packing and looked at me, a condescending smile playing on his lips. "Come on, Dad, don't be difficult. The girls need a proper yard. Melissa's mother, Alina, can't manage the stairs at her place anymore. You've got all this space. You don't need 3 bedrooms and this cavern," he gestured around my workshop. "The girls can use your old study. We'll take the guest room. Alina can have the den downstairs." He was already drawing new blueprints over my life, erasing my lines with his own. "Mark," I said, my voice dangerously calm, "this is my home. I built it. I paid for it, every single nail." He laughed, a short, sharp sound that held no warmth. "Don't be dramatic. It'll be good for you. You won't be so isolated. We'll handle the bills, the upkeep. That roof isn't getting any younger, you know." "I've managed just fine," I said, my knuckles white where I gripped the workbench. "I have my pension. I have savings." "For how long?" he challenged, leaning forward. "Be practical, Dad. This is what family does. We take care of each other." "Is that what this is?" I asked, the heat finally rising in my voice. "Taking care of me? Or is it free housing, free childcare, and free elder care for your mother-in-law?" His face hardened. "That's a hell of a thing to say. We're your family." "Family asks," I said, the words quiet but sharp as a chisel. "They don't declare." His jaw tightened. "Things change. Saturday. The movers will be here at 10. Don't worry, we'll handle everything." He turned and walked out, the door closing behind him with a finality that shook the very foundations he was so casually claiming. I stood alone in the sudden silence. The workshop, my sanctuary, now felt like a cage. The smell of wood, once a comfort, was suddenly suffocating. I could feel it, the slow, inexorable pressure of being erased in my own home. I set my coffee mug down with a hand that trembled not with fear, but with a cold, building fury. I looked at the portrait of Clara hanging on the wall, her eyes seeming to hold a challenge. "Not this time, Mark," I whispered to the empty room. "Not this house." Something tectonic shifted inside me. The quiet, accommodating father was gone. In his place stood a man who remembered how to build fortresses, not just furniture. Have you ever had that moment? When you look at someone you love and you see a stranger? When you realize their smile is just a mask for the knife they're about to slide between your ribs? It's a coldness that sinks right into your bones. They aren't seeing you anymore, they're seeing an obstacle, a problem to be removed. If you've ever felt that, if you've ever had your own family try to dismantle you piece by piece, then you understand why what I did next wasn't about revenge. It was about survival. Stay with me. Because the quietest man in the room is often the one you should never, ever underestimate. That night's sleep was a foreign country. The ceiling above my bed was a map of every mistake I'd ever made as a father. Had I been too soft, too available? Had my help after his divorce, my co-signing of loans, my quiet financial rescues, all been interpreted as weakness? I got up and went to the window. The moonlit outline of my house was a stark silhouette against the starry Arkansas sky. I could still feel Clara's presence in these walls, her fierce, protective love. She'd always been the strategist. "Arthur," she'd say, "some people see a wall and try to knock it down. A carpenter sees the same wall and knows how to reinforce it." I needed to reinforce my walls. At 6 a.m., I was on the phone with my oldest friend, Ben Waters, a retired real estate attorney with a mind like a steel trap and a heart loyal to a fault. "Ben," I said the moment he answered, his voice gruff with sleep, "I need your help, it's Mark." I didn't need to explain further. Ben had seen the pattern for years. He grunted. "What's he done now?" "He's decided he and his family are moving in here on Saturday. Told me, not asked." There was a beat of silence, then a low whistle. "He's gotten bold. All right, my office, 8 o'clock. We'll build you a legal moat." Ben's office smelled of leather and old law books. He listened, steepling his fingers as I laid out the situation. "He's banking on guilt and your good nature, Arthur," Ben said finally. "And the fact that once they're in, establishing tenancy, it becomes a nightmare to get them out. We need to move faster than him." "The house is in my name, free and clear," I said. "Which gives you all the power," Ben affirmed. "But power unused is worthless. You have two choices. You can try to hold the line and face a war of attrition on your own doorstep, or you can make a strategic retreat and burn the bridge behind you." "Sell," I said, the word feeling both sacrilegious and liberating. "It's an option," Ben nodded. "A drastic one, but it would be the cleanest break. He can't claim what you no longer own." I thought of the house, every groove in the hardwood floor worn by my own footsteps, every window frame I'd carved and set, the memory of Clara in every room. The grief was a physical pain, but the thought of Mark and his wife, Melissa, taking it over, of my quiet workshop being converted into a playroom, of my life being slowly suffocated, that was a different kind of death. "I have savings," I said, "from the bookbinding work I do for the university. Cash. He doesn't know about it." Ben's eyes gleamed. "Good, that's your getaway fund. Let's see what the market will bear. If we list it today, we might be able to close before he even unpacks his first box." We spent the next hour devising a plan. We would list the house immediately, priced to sell fast. Ben knew a broker who specialized in quick, discreet transactions. I would reach out to a buyer I'd met months ago, a quiet historian named Daniel Shaw who'd admired the house's craftsmanship and mentioned he was looking for a permanent home. As I drove home, a strange calm settled over me. The decision was made. The path was clear. I was no longer reacting, I was building. My first call was to Daniel. He was surprised but intensely interested. We agreed on a price that was fair, if slightly under market value, with the condition of an immediate all-cash closing. He had the means and the motivation. My second call was to a storage unit facility. My third was to a realtor about a small, sturdy cabin I'd seen outside of Hot Springs, a place with a workshop shed and no memories. The next 48 hours were a whirlwind of quiet, determined activity. I began the methodical process of dismantling my life. I wasn't packing, I was curating Clara's favorite vase, the set of chisels my own father had given me, the cedar chest we'd built together. These were non-negotiable. The rest was just lumber. Mark, oblivious, texted once, "Mom would have wanted us to be together." The manipulation was so transparent it was almost pathetic. I didn't reply. I was too busy sharpening my tools for the final cut. The day before the move, Mark showed up unannounced again. This time he brought his wife. Melissa stood slightly behind him, her smile not quite reaching her eyes, holding a bakery box like a white flag of false peace. "Dad," Mark began, his tone placating, "we just want to smooth things over before tomorrow." Melissa stepped forward. "The girls are so excited, Arthur. They've already picked out their rooms." I stood in the doorway of my workshop, blocking the entrance. "That won't be necessary." Mark's smile tightened. "Don't be like that, we're family." "Are we?" I asked, my voice quiet. "Because family doesn't lay siege to each other's homes." His composure cracked. "God damn it, Dad, we're trying to help you. You're an old man living alone in a house that's too big for you. What if you fall? What if you have a stroke? You'd be lucky we're here." I looked at him, truly looked at him. I saw the boy I'd taught to swing a hammer, now using those lessons to try and break down my door. The disappointment was a cold, heavy stone in my gut. "I've been living alone for 10 years, Mark," I said, my voice low and steady. "And in all that time, the only thing that's ever hurt me is you." The color drained from his face. Melissa looked away, ashamed. "Saturday," he spat, pointing a finger at me. "We're coming, you can't stop us." He turned and stormed off, Melissa scurrying after him. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart pounding a rhythm of finality. I picked up my phone and texted Ben one word: proceed. Then I walked to my workbench, picked up my favorite hammer and felt its familiar, balanced weight. It wasn't a weapon, it was a tool, and I knew exactly how to use it. The morning of the move dawned with a deceptive stillness. The air in my workshop was cool, smelling of fresh coffee, and the sharp, clean scent of mineral spirits I'd used to wipe down my tools one last time. Each one was now carefully packed in a heavy-duty crate, ready for the storage unit. The skeletal remains of my life, Clara's cedar chest, my father's chisels, a few boxes of photos and ledgers, were stacked by the door. The house itself echoed, a hollowed-out shell. I stood at the workbench, not building, not repairing, just waiting. A general on the eve of a battle he had already won, waiting only for the enemy to arrive and discover the field was already lost. At 9:58 a.m., the silence was shattered by the diesel groan of a large rental truck pulling into the driveway, followed by the familiar purr of Mark's SUV. Car doors slammed. Children's voices, excited and high-pitched, cut through the air. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my coffee, the ceramic mug warm and solid in my hand. My heart was a steady, rhythmic drum, not of fear, but of grim finality. I didn't go out to meet them, I waited. The side door to the workshop burst open. Mark stood there, grinning, a set of moving gloves tucked into his belt. "Dad, we're here. Movers are right behind us. Let's get this show on the road." He clapped his hands together, the sound unnaturally loud in the quiet space. His eyes swept the room, finally registering the crates, the emptiness. His smile faltered for a fraction of a second. "What's all this?" "Packing," I said, my voice level. He laughed, a nervous, dismissive sound. "Well, you can stop. We'll handle all that. Just point us to what you want to keep." Before I could answer, two burly movers appeared behind him in the doorway, their presence filling the space with a tangible expectation. "Gentlemen," I said, nodding to them, "you can stand down. There's nothing to unload today." The movers exchanged a confused glance. Mark's face tightened. "What are you talking about? Of course there is. The whole truck is full." "Then I suggest you take it back to wherever it came from," I replied, setting my mug down on the workbench with a definitive click. Mark's patience, always a thin veneer, evaporated. "Dad, this isn't funny. We've got a schedule. Now, are you going to open the front door or do I need to use my key?" He jangled a keyring, the one that held the spare I'd given him a lifetime ago for emergencies. "That key won't work," I said. "I had the locks changed." The color began to drain from his face. A muscle in his jaw twitched. "You what?" The scene was interrupted by the smooth arrival of a dark sedan. Ben Waters stepped out, looking every bit the seasoned attorney in his tailored suit. A younger man, Daniel Shaw, emerged from the passenger side, holding a leather folder. Mark watched them approach, his confusion curdling into a dawning, horrified understanding. "Ben, what the hell is this?" Ben offered a thin, professional smile. "Good morning, Mark. We're here for the closing." "Closing?" Mark's voice cracked. "What closing?" Daniel Shaw stepped forward, his demeanor calm and respectful. "Mr. Bell and I are finalizing the sale of the property." The word sale hung in the air, sucking all the sound from the world. Mark stared at me, his eyes wide with utter disbelief. You sold the house." "I did," I said, my voice echoing slightly in the empty workshop. "I told you I wouldn't be here." For a moment he was speechless, his mouth working soundlessly. Then the storm broke. "You sold our house," he roared, the sound raw and guttural. He took a step toward me, but Ben moved smoothly between us. "The house was never ours, Mark," I said, the coldness in my voice surprising even me. "It was mine, and I chose what to do with it." Melissa had gotten out of the SUV, her hands clutching the shoulders of her two daughters, their small faces pinched with fear. "Arthur, please," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "Where are we supposed to go?" "You'll figure it out," I said, the words not unkind, but absolute. "The same way I had to figure out how to build a life after your father-in-law died. The same way I figured out how to build this house with my own two hands." Mark was shaking with rage, his finger jabbing toward me. "You're senile. You're not in your right mind. This is elder abuse. Ben, you can't let this happen." "I assure you," Ben interjected, his voice a low, steady rumble of authority, "the sale was conducted with the utmost legality. Arthur's capacity has been verified by two independent physicians. The transaction is complete. The funds have cleared." The finality in Ben's voice was a door slamming shut. Mark's shoulders slumped. The fight seemed to drain out of him, leaving behind a hollowed-out shell of a man. "You just gave away my inheritance," he whispered, the words thick with betrayal. I actually laughed then, a short, sharp exhale of disbelief. "Inheritance? You think I spent my life building, sweating, saving for you to inherit it like some spoiled prince? I built it to prove I could stand on my own. That's the only thing you ever stood to inherit from me, and you failed the test." The movers, looking deeply uncomfortable, began resecuring the ramp on their truck. The children started to cry. Melissa led them back to the car, her body bowed with a shame that wasn't hers to carry. Mark just stood there, defeated on the battlefield of his own making. "You'll regret this," he muttered, but the threat was empty, a ghost of his former bluster. "When you're alone and forgotten, you'll wish you made a different choice." I met his gaze, holding it until he was the one to look away. "Maybe," I said, "but the regret will be mine, not yours." I turned my back on him, on the life he thought he was entitled to, and walked toward Ben and Daniel. I handed Daniel the keys, the new ones. "The house is yours," I said. "Take good care of her. She has good bones." Daniel nodded, his eyes holding a respect that my own son never had. "I will, sir, I promise." As Ben and I drove away in his sedan, I didn't look back. I kept my eyes fixed on the road ahead, on the winding path that led to hot springs, to a small cabin, and to a future I had designed for myself. The first few weeks in the cabin were a study in silence and solitude. It was smaller than the house, a compact, efficient space nestled among pine trees with a view of a misty valley. The workshop was a separate shed, just big enough for my essential tools. The silence was different here, not the hollow echo of an emptied life, but the quiet hum of a new beginning. I received a single, rambling voicemail from Mark a few days later, full of anger that bled into a desperate, confused apology. I listened to it once, then deleted it. The bridge was ash. Some structures cannot and should not be rebuilt. I focused on the new. I joined a woodworking guild in town, men my age with sawdust in their veins and stories in their eyes. I started a small project, a rocking chair for the porch, the wood smooth and forgiving under my hands. The rhythm of planning and sanding was a meditation, smoothing my own rough edges. Ben visited often, bringing news he'd gleaned from mutual contacts. Mark and his family had been forced into a cramped apartment. Melissa's mother had moved in with a relative in another state. The fallout was exactly as catastrophic as I'd predicted, and I felt a pang of sorrow for my grandchildren, caught in the crossfire of their father's hubris. "He's been asking about you," Ben said one evening, sitting on my new porch. "Trying to find you. He seems different, humbled." "Humiliation isn't the same as humility, Ben," I replied, watching a hawk circle in the distant sky. "He lost his safety net, that's all. I need to know he's learned to build his own." 3 months passed. The rocking chair was finished. The cabin began to feel like home, its walls absorbing my new routines, my new peace. Then, one Saturday afternoon, I heard a car cautiously navigating the gravel road. It wasn't Ben's sedan. My heart didn't pound. I felt a strange calm. I walked out onto the porch as Mark's SUV came to a stop. He got out alone. He looked thinner, older. The arrogant set of his shoulders was gone. He stood by his car for a long moment, just looking at me, at the cabin, as if reassembling me in his mind. "Dad," he said finally, his voice quiet. "Mark, the girls wanted me to give you this." He held out a clumsily wrapped package. I stepped forward and took it. It was a framed drawing of the three of them. "Thank you," I said. "Can we talk?" he asked, the words sounding foreign and difficult on his tongue. I gestured to the 2 rocking chairs on the porch. We sat. The silence stretched, filled only by the sound of the wind in the pines. "I was wrong," he said, staring at his hands. "Not just about the house, about everything. I treated you like a resource. I didn't see you. I'm sorry." The apology was clean. No excuses, no qualifiers. It was a foundation stone, laid correctly for the first time. "Apology accepted," I said. "But understand, son, forgiveness is a boundary, not an invitation back to the way things were." He nodded, a look of profound relief washing over his face. "I know, I'm not asking for anything, just a chance to be better." He looked around. "This place suits you." "It does," I agreed. "It's enough." He stayed for an hour. We didn't talk about the past. We talked about his new job teaching shop class at the high school, about the girls, about the rocking chair I'd built. It was the first real conversation we'd had in a decade. When he left, he didn't ask to see me again. He simply said, "I'm glad you're okay, Dad." And for the first time, I believed he meant it. A year to the day after I'd left the craftsman house, I was applying a coat of linseed oil to a new oak desk when I heard the crunch of gravel. This time, it was Mark's SUV, and the girls tumbled out, running toward the porch with the unbridled joy only children possess. "Grandpa, Grandpa, we got to come." I smiled, a real, unforced smile, and opened my arms. The war was over. The peace we had now was fragile, carefully constructed, and stronger than anything that had come before. It was built not on obligation but on choice. And it was, finally, enough.